Next, we have the timeline. So what we see here at the timeline, we have the at this latest March Rep Assembly meeting, the nomination petitions were made available. That is from the bylaws. And this is just language from the bylaws largely. The nominating petitions, which I will talk about more, are due the last working day in April. That'll be the 29th at 5 p.m. And they require 20 full dues member signatures. The ballots are expected to be mailed no later than 15 days after that, so mid-May. Then it is expected to be a majority cast. It doesn't say when the vote has to happen. So that's usually set by the elections committee in conjunction with the executive board. I've often seen it be in June. You have to win a majority to hold the position. If no one wins a majority, there will be a runoff of the top two, and it will follow the same voting procedures as in the same ballot company will mail it out, mail it back. When Liz ran the first time, she ended up in a runoff, and then she won. And by
Laura,
first, they would take office. Yeah.
And Laura, I just wanted to add something about slate voting because I had an interesting entry into being on the executive board. Actually, ran on a slate where that slate did not win necessarily, but some people on the slate got enough votes to be put into those positions on the executive board. So I know that's the case with everyone underneath vice president and president, but is that the case with those positions as well, even though I guess that's highly unlikely?
I believe it is. I mean, I think this is what it says, right? A majority of ballots cast shall determine the election. So yes, I think if it was a lower position and no one won a majority, then there would be a runoff of the top two.
Thank you.
Sorry, was there another question? No. All right, so the voting process, as of now, it will be by mail only to your home address, and it must be mailed back in time to be counted. You have to follow the directions extremely precisely. I've witnessed many a ballot get thrown out because people didn't sign the back. I have witnessed ballots get thrown out because they have what's known as an overcount or overvote, where maybe they voted for a slate at the top and then they tried to vote for something else in there. That means nothing counts at all. Like, that ballot was toast. People who didn't use like the appropriate utensil. It is strict, and they just toss. And if it's late, it's not even getting opened, because the ballots get counted in front of observers from each campaign. So currently we're in the process of trying to add an electronic return option. So far that is going down in flames. We had an executive board meeting on Monday in the hopes of passing a first part of an amendment to the bylaws that the president said was required in order to make that kind of change. It failed, so that's not happening that way. The next option is gathering 800 signatures from members, but I'll just be honest, sitting in that meeting, they said the elections committee would need to set the rules for that they would need to be followed. And because there are no rules for that, because it's not been done, the likelihood that any method we chose would be accepted is almost zero, in my opinion. So I think we should bank on this being a mail-in process only, and all the complications that may or may not come from that. All right, so now for if you want to run. The elections committee does now have a page up on the WTU website. It went up last week. So you're definitely open to going to that, and I can, email this out to everyone, the PowerPoint, if you want to, look at it more later. The rules and the bylaws are you need 20 signatures from dues paying members. The elections committee is very rigorous in verifying these dues paying members. If someone thought they were a dues paying member and they are not, then their signature will not be counted. If they wrote a nickname and it's not the name the union has on file, their signature will not be counted. They are very, 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 very strict. So my suggestion to anyone who wants to enter this process, you should get at least double. 25 is what they recommend. I say go for double. One, because it pushes you to get out to more people and get your name out there. And that's only good for, trying to win an election. But two, then you don't have to worry when it comes to signature verification, because the likelihood that over half of your signatures are bad would hopefully be low. But you could also go for even more. I know Liz Davis turned in hundreds just to maybe show what she was able to do. But I think it's just better to be safe than sorry. You have to be in on time. They are extremely strict on this. They will not broker you walking in at 5:05. I would not turn them in April 29th. I would turn them in earlier. Like I'd say set a date for the 28th is like your latest deadline. Because things have occurred and challenges have been made and lost when standing in line, and questions of when did you get in line, when didn't you? If you're like trying to do that whole I was in line by 5, I would just not engage with it. I would be done early and I would get them in early. That way you don't have to worry. You don't have to raise your blood pressure at all. Just get them in. I'm going to show you what they look like. See if that works. Maybe. Here it comes. So this is from the WTU website. So you would check the box that you're running for. If you are running for more than one, you need to submit more than one petition. You have to write your name out. It can be someone else. But you'd say like you put your name in school, you put the position, and then whoever's kind of filling it out can do it for you. But you can also just sign it yourself. But if you have, friends who are doing it on your behalf at other schools, you still need to sign all of them yourself in the end, but you can have nominators gathering the petitions. You have to make sure people print legibly. Like I said, if they can't read it, if it's a nickname, if there's anything off about it, they will toss it and they have to sign. And you can see they do give 25 spaces, but you could also just create, 2 for yourself and then try to fill both. Again, if you're setting a goal that's that much higher than what's required and you don't make it, but you still at least have, over 20, then you're probably safe. But I would just say really try to shoot for that 40. And then you really don't have to worry. You have to submit them in person. Like you got to bring them in. Someone can bring it in for you. So like if you're doing a slate and you've checked over all the petitions, they could bring in the petition for you. And in fact, if you're running as a slate, the elections committee does suggest that you bring them all together, though it's not required. They will give you a copy of them back with like a stamp, and all of this is spelled out at the official website. So that's nominations. That's how you get on the ballot. Can't run if you're not on the ballot. So you have to go through this process. It is open already. And at the end of next month, it closes. Then for campaigning, there is nothing that I've seen on the website so far that gives the official rules for campaigning. So what I'm telling you is what I remember from the past. And anyone else who remembers things from the past, feel free to add on. So if you're campaigning, a few things that you need to know. One, WTU presidential candidates get to submit a statement that will get sent to all members. That is in the bylaws, so that will happen. You cannot use the W2 logo in any printed or online campaign materials. You cannot use the W2 logo. It's not yours to use. It's also not used by the current president if running for re-election. You cannot use the W2 logo in any election campaign materials. You cannot campaign during work hours. That would include social media posts and emails. As far as and then current elected officials cannot campaign while on the job. So if you are, if I cannot campaign while I'm serving in my role as secretary, right? That would be inappropriate. And that goes for the president and general vice president as well. They cannot use the WTU staff to participate in their campaigns, etc. When it comes to emails, historically, the email list has been inaccessible and not used for elections beyond official elections material set out by the elections committee. That can include those little blurbs about the W2 presidential candidates as mentioned in the bylaws. But really only the elections committee gets access to the email list, and they are expected to be neutral. That being said, in the past, the mailing list has been possible to have access to. You never get to see it, but for a fixed price that the elections committee negotiates with a vendor, you can create a flyer or a postcard that can then get sent out through that vendor to all W2 members, again, for a fixed price that all campaigns would have the same access to. So there has been that opportunity. Those usually come more in, April, May is when the elections committee gives out those kinds of opportunities. We know that the rep assembly passed, a motion that the elections committee would also conduct a debate, but I believe that's just the presidential candidates, maybe more, and a meet and greet. And the last meeting they said they were working on that and would have more information, probably when they also talk about these other rules. Question of, can candidates put flyers on cars in school parking lots? My understanding is yes, parking lots have been considered largely fair game, though the elections committee would probably need to spell that out. My understanding has been that it doesn't have to be off campus because this isn't like politics for the government, right? This isn't like a mayoral campaign. This is internal union elections. So you can, now the elections committee may tell us we're wrong. No, I'm wrong, excuse me. But my understanding has been you can talk to fellow members about the election. You can have them sign your petition and all of that in the building, just not during school hours. So like before your official start time and after your official end time. And lunches have typically been allowed for union business. So you could possibly do it at lunch. But I'm not 100% sure about the lunch one, because what I remember from last time was that basically, I think they said like 8 to 3:30 was kind of off limits. And then you could do what you needed to do. But it's not like the Hatch Act, which is like the federal law about union membership in elections, does not apply to the union election itself. So you do have a bit more freedom and wiggle room to be involved, but the elections committee will spell that out. So I would maybe be careful about campaigning before they put out their rules. And really just focus on your nomination petitions and making sure you're getting those 40 member signatures. So you only officially need 20. All right, last bit here, just from me, is DC Core. So DC Core, we're a new caucus. We have not been through a WTU election as a caucus. But our commitment, and what we've talked about at least, is that our commitment is to democracy, into increasing turnout, increasing voter information, increasing access to candidates, increasing information. What we've discussed so far, though we're still working on it ourselves, is that for all candidates, we will provide a page on our website where we're going to collect information and share it with all WTU members in a neutral manner, in a manner that we would not put our own spin on anything. We'd really just say like, oh, here's the candidate's website, here's their flyer. Like, we have a few questions we plan to ask that we would allow people to like write their own little piece to have up on the website. And that's expected for all positions, not just president, because we really do believe all the positions are important. We are also in discussion of creating our own endorsement process. We have not figured out exactly how that's going to look and how it's going to work. But it could mean that we are willing to endorse candidates for different positions if we believe you align with our mission and vision and our commitment to organizing. And then if endorsed, you'd receive our support, volunteers, and we have, some money for social media and printed materials. But we're still in the works on that, so none of that is kind of set in stone. But that's kind of where we're at, and that's part of why we're doing this training and we're recording it, so that really it's just to inform WTU members of what they can do and help plug people in so that more and more people are involved running and voting.